it's Jeff Reinebold here for Coach's Choice. We're going to talk today about the 3-4 defense and be specific about stopping the run and defensive line play to stop the run. And it's a fact of football, no matter what level you coach at, whether you're in the Pee-wees all the way to the National Football League, you have to stop the run. And the key thing about stopping the run is great defensive line play. All great defenses have had great defensive linemen. We're going to show you how, why, and what makes a defensive lineman a great player inside the 3-4 scheme. Let's talk about now philosophically the advantages of the 3-4 defense. Number one, it's extremely multiple. It's easy to adjust. You can do all kinds of things with it, and it allows you to attack an offense from every position on the field. In our way of thinking, when you talk to the players, we say everybody in the defense is going to have a chance to attack the offense. And we're going to come at them from all different looks, all different places on the field, and we have multiple flexibility and really simplicity. When we talk about simplicity, how is it simple and be multiple at the same time? Because the system allows the players to understand. It's not hard to learn. It is a little hard to teach. You got to understand it before you teach it, and that's why we're here today. You know, the biggest challenge you're ever going to have in football, and that's everybody, it's from Pop Warner to the National Football League, is to find great big people. Good big people who can run are hard to find. The great thing about the 3-4 is because you've only got 3 of them, there's one less that has to be on the field, and it does put more speed on the field. Your special teams are going to improve because you're going to have more linebackers on your roster, and again, anytime you've got speed, you got a chance. And then again, we talk about the ability to adjust to offensive football. You know, now with the zone read and all the one-back sets and the multiple motions and the stack formations and the bunches and all the things that offensive coaches have gone to try and hurt you on defense, you need to be able to adjust your defensive structure quickly, easily. And again, we'll show you how we do that in the 3-4 as we go through these tapes. All right, now, in the 3-4, the number one thing you have to be able to do is find out how you basically draw a job description for the positions on the field. The first place we begin, and I think the reason that we begin there is it's the key point up front, and you have to be good up front. You got to find a nose tackle. Now, the nose tackles that we look for, we want bigger bodied guys. We're looking for a stronger guy, a space eater in there who can two-gap. He can be your least effective pass rusher, but he does have to be able to demand the double team inside. You can play with a smaller guy if you have to. If you could get a guy that's quick and can move around in there, you can play with a smaller nose, but you want a bigger body in general. Then you move outside to the ends. Now, the ends do not have to be elite athletes as you'd look for in a 4-3 end. These guys have to understand leverage. They've got to understand how to play with their hands, their eyes, their feet, and you can win with less than elite athletes at end. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are a perfect example of that. Their ends are not guys that are going to win, you know, the underwear Olympics at the combine, but they're guys that understand and are good football players, solid football players, and play within the structure. That is really critical for the defensive lineman, that they play within the structure. Now, as you move to linebacker, the outside linebacker is the key to the defense. Those two outside linebackers are typically bigger guys. They can be maybe a small college end that you put up on 2 feet. DeMarcus Ware, who played so well in the Cowboys 3-4 for Rob Ryan, was a defensive end at Troy State. Those are the guys you're looking for. You want a guy that can rush a tackle, can do minimal effectiveness in the drop scheme, in the pass drop scheme, but that guy has to be a guy that you would never put a back on. You want to force the offense to fan the tackle to him. Once you get a guy who can beat a back consistently and can rush a tackle, you've got exactly the guy you're looking for. James Harrison of the Steelers is a perfect example. As a 4-3 linebacker, was cut 3 times, finally found a home in Pittsburgh because he could do those things particularly well. Was big and strong enough to rush a tackle, but was just overpowering against a running back. You couldn't put a running back against him and block him. And that's the guy you're looking for in an outside linebacker. Now, when you go to the inside linebackers, the buck or the strong inside linebacker, he can be a bigger, strong safety. Doesn't need to be a pounder inside. You're going to get him covered up. Very few times are you going to be able to get a blocker to him. He has to be able to run. He has to be a space tackler. He has to be able to cover. He's going to be your better coverage linebacker, and he needs good football sense because he's going to do most of the adjusting inside the offense. As the offensive formations break and you get into one-back sets and all your one-back adjustments, that guy is going to be the guy that's going to have to be all over the field for you. So you want a guy that has very good football understanding and football savvy. The Mike linebacker is the brain of the defense. He's the guy that's got to get everybody lined up. He makes the checks. He makes your calls. He needs to be a tackle-to-tackle hitter. He needs to be a sure tackler. Does not have to be a great cover guy because it's hard to get him isolated in coverage. You know, if he's got coverage skills, that's an advantage. But you also need a guy in there that's a good blitzer because he's going to get matched up most of the time, as you'll see, against the back, and you want to have some pass rush skills in this guy. But more important than anything else, he's got to be a leader, he's got to be the field general for you, and he's got to be a tackle-to-tackle tackler. We're going to talk now about defensive back play as it pertains to stopping the run in the 3-4 defense. Let's go back and just so that everybody's on the same page, talk about the general topics relative to stopping the run in the defense. As you look at the defense, we know that we are a gap cancellation defense. Everybody up front knows what their gap is and they're responsible for canceling it, whether it's the A, the B, the C, or the D. The inside guys, our front seven, these people right here, they are going to be the ones that will cancel all the gaps from C to C on both sides of the football. All of the gaps will be canceled by one of those players. The ball will move laterally on the football field. If you talk to us, those of us who believe in this system, one of the things we talk about all the time is we do not want vertical seams in the defense. We don't want the ball, we don't want a running back running vertically into the defense. We want him to run laterally with the concept that eventually the ball will run to an unblocked player. Now, in order for that system to work, you have to have great run support out of your secondary. And that requires a system to determine, first and foremost, who's involved in the run. And let's talk about it as we go through some simple formations and calls for determining who is going to be a edge setter, as we say, in the defense. You have two basic secondary support calls. If we have a sky call, then what we are saying is that a safety, either a weak safety or a strong safety, is going to be responsible for setting the perimeter, setting the edge, creating a corner on the defense. So for example, against a tight end set, the strong safety is involved. It is a sky call, and it is now he who is responsible for setting the edge. In a basic offensive football play, the toss play, where the fullback is going to come to the edge, it is the strong safety's responsibility to force and frame the football. Now, when we talk about run support, whether you're a linebacker, even as a defensive lineman, there are three types of run support that we talk about. The first is what we call framing the ball. You are responsible to frame the football. When we say frame the ball, very simply, like a window frame or a picture frame, you're going to keep the football inside of the frame. The ball will always maintain inside of you. You're going to force the ball into other tacklers as they come from inside out. So again, when you frame it, you are setting the edge. You're the physical edge of the defense. You're responsible for keeping the ball inside of you. In other situations, we will spill the football. If we spill the ball, then what we say is we are going to knife underneath the block and force the ball to bounce over the top of me. Right now, we don't do that a lot with our secondary players, but there are some situations where we will actually spill the ball with a secondary player. And then the third aspect, or the third possibility, is we want to splatter the edge. And when we say splatter the edge, what we're saying now is, as that blocker comes to you, we are less concerned about whether the ball goes inside or outside than we are that you make the ball make a definitive movement. That the ball you can't make it muddy for everybody else. You come and you just blow up that blocker, spill it, splatter it, bounce it, do whatever you need to do, but make sure that the ball makes a definitive move. So again, when we talk about run support, we're talking about framing, we're talking about spilling, and we're talking about splattering. And we use all three of those in our secondary drills, in our secondary teamwork, in our secondary walkthroughs, and in our game plan. So again, you have to be able to master all of those. Now let's talk about those individually as we go forward. We see in our league, because of all of the one-back sets, we see more linemen as pullers than we see fullbacks as pullers. And in general, we want to frame offensive linemen. Now, the technique for framing is really pretty simple. I am going to come and attack and constrict the running lane and strike the blocker with my inside shoulder and leg. And remember, on defense, it's critical, whether it's pass rush, whatever you do, when you look at defensive football, it's done same arm, same leg. So if I'm going to strike a blocker from inside of me with my left rip, with my left shoulder, with my left forearm, I want to step with my left foot as I do that. I don't want to strike and leave my leg behind. I don't have as much force. I want to get my inside foot up, my outside foot back, and strike up the field. Strike up and force the thing to go back inside. Frame it inside. Violently frame the football. And I violently frame the football by striking up with both my forearm, my shoulder, and my leg as I attack that blocker and constrict the running lane. Again, making the entry point, making the entry angle difficult for the back, making the entry point difficult for the back. All right? So again, we'll see those more than any. Now, you're going to see on tape as we go through this DVD, you're going to actually see a defensive back do it right one time and wrong one time. The first time he's going to come up and he's going to turkey neck, what we call turkey neck. He's going to play with a long neck looking over the top of that blocker. You're going to see the blocker just knock him almost to the sideline. You can't, when you get yourself involved with a puller in the open space, use your athleticism, and then at the last second just go cut his upfield leg and create a pile of bodies there, a pile of guts there, so that the ball, again, we're cancel. That's one time we'll cancel 1-for-1 against a puller, a big puller. We don't want to put you in a disadvantage where you're up there trying to hand fight the guy and he knocks you out of the park. So again, that's our primary way of playing it when we are playing sky run support. Now, additionally, we have what we call a Cleo call. And again, operative word there is C for corner. That now puts our corner as the primary run player. So it may be, versus a single receiver, our cornerback now is involved in run support. He is the one that is responsible for creating the edge of the defense. He is going to frame, spill, or splatter the ball regardless of what the defense requires, but he's got to get there. Now, in order to play good Cleo, the number one thing, and you're going to hear us talk about this all the time through all of these series of DVDs, what do you do with your eyes? Where do you put your eyes? Most critical. I cannot look at that receiver and play great run defense. If this is the edge of the defense, so for example, if we're playing one of our fronts, which is sweat, which puts the Sam and the Will on the front side of the formation, typically we roll the coverage to the boundary, so we now have a Cleo call into the boundary, which gets the cornerback involved in the run support. On any base blocks, he is now going to come to the edge and set the perimeter. All right? We allow him to rip through and get underneath that wide receiver. We don't ask him to keep the wide receiver inside of him. He's going to be reckless and he's going to rip and drive across that wide receiver. The safety is our secondary run player, which means as he starts, the play comes weak. Now he will, before he goes, he looks at that wide receiver. If the wide receiver has contacted and is blocking the corner, he will now fit inside or outside off that block. He is the secondary run player. The Cleo player is the primary player, or our force player, and they will play together. So again, regardless of how that play would go, if the ball would bounce over the top, we'll now fit off of the bounce. If the play runs up inside, because we get a good frame, I'll now fit off the ball. Remember that it's leverages and fits on the ball that matter. It's really, really important that in this day and age, with all of these great skilled athletes, with this field, with the openness of the game, that players understand what my leverage is, what my fit is, what my spot on the ball is, where I belong in the defensive structure. Am I a primary run player? Am I a secondary run player? As a secondary run player, I never commit to the run until I know that the perimeter is blocked. All right? So for example, they come out, they toss the ball weak, here comes our corner for support, and now the wide receiver runs down the field. The secondary run player is responsible for matching that receiver because he never commits to run until he sees a block physically made on that corner. All right? So again, secondary player must see a block made before he commits to the run. Primary player can use his primary key. He always knows he has help over the top. We always know our fit. We always know our leverage. We always know our responsibility inside the defense. You have to understand why you're asked to do what you're asked to do. Now we know where we fit. We know whether we're a primary player, whether we're a secondary player, whether I'm playing ball inside, outside, whether I'm spill, whether I'm splatter, whether I'm force. Now I have to be able to tackle. The number one fundamental in football is tackling. You have to be able to tackle. And for secondary players, it's critical because typically you're tackling with the most space around you. All right? Now, for all of us on defense, every single position on the football field, we talk in terms of these things when we talk about tackling. The number one thing is I have to understand this principle, what we call near hip tracks. Okay? And again, when I near hip track the football, what I'm saying is here is the ball carrier. All right? If I am the first at the ball from the outside, say for in this example, I am the strong safety, I am now going to come and I only tackle the outside hip of that ball carrier so that if I miss back inside. If I am the first man to the ball from the outside, I can never miss outside unless I'm standing on the sideline. Right? Again, if I'm the first man to the ball from the outside, I never miss outside unless I'm standing on the sideline. Because again, we established earlier in talking about the run that those two sidelines are the best tacklers in football. Now, if I am the inside fill player, in this case the free safety coming in the alley, I'm now going to near hip track that ball. Right? So again, I don't ever want to get, if those are my shoulders as I come square to the ball, and we don't tackle this way to the ball, we want to come square, always fighting to stay as square as we can, as long as we can on defense. I'm never going to let, if this is my head, I'm never going to let that ball get to that shoulder. That ball's always going to maintain that position on me. Always going to maintain that position on me. Now here I come and I'm near hip tracking, and I'm always going to maintain that position on the football. Okay? And again, it's important that you practice those concepts. Tackling drills, the ability to tackle well, those things are critically important. We would do tackling drills, circuit tackling drills every single day last year in Montreal. before we went out to practice. That's how important we felt tackling was. And they say tackling's a lost art. That may be the case, but it's an art that you can refine. You need to define it for the players, refine the fundamentals, and make sure that they understand they have to be able to tackle well as a defense. All right? And again, coming to balance, getting control of your feet, understanding your near hip tracks, understanding who's the guy that's going to play outside the ball, who's going to play inside the ball, how you squeeze the ball together. The most beautiful thing in football for us is to watch defenders come and close the net around the football, and there's no place for the ball to enter, and multiple helmets, multiple people are on the ball. That's playing great fundamental defense, but you have to understand the concept of near hip tracks first. Near hip tracks first and foremost. And then everything you do in the secondary, everything you do with run support from there on is based upon your ability to tackle and leverage in space. As we talked about, the number one priority, the number one thing a defensive back's got to be able to do is set the edge or set the perimeter of the defense. The inside people, the linebackers, the big guys, they'll do the gap cancellation inside, and we want the ball to bounce laterally. We want it to run to the corners, and then once it runs to the corners, we have to have a definitive edge set so that all of the fits can happen the way they need to happen. Now, as you watch this lateral play here, watch how the defensive back involved in setting the edge. Right here, this guy will now attack the blocker and attack the line of scrimmage. He's going to come up the field. He's not going to widen as he approaches the blocker and create a running lane. It's important as you set the edge that you get to the blocker as fast as you can. You're going to get your inside shoulder down, rip with your same inside arm and leg, and get up the field. You don't want to maintain line of scrimmage leverage. You want to get up through the blocker and strike through the blocker as you gain vertical position on the blocker to set the edge. This creates a definitive corner, a definitive edge of the defense, and allows for shorter scrapes from the unblocked players inside. Again, the principle of the defense is to make sure that the ball always runs to unblocked players. Those could come from inside or outside, but they have to have the edge set. There must be a definitive edge to the defense. And you can see here, as both of the defensive backs attack the blockers, they don't sit and wait on blockers. They use their hands, they use their shoulders, they use their rip to fight through, and then the safeties will fill and the backers will fill from inside out. So again, it's important now, again, as you watch this from ground level or the end zone copy, see the edge get set right there. The DB rips through the blocker, rips upfield, and squeezes and constricts the running lane so that there's no clear entry edge for the back. Now let's watch another example of setting the perimeter. Now, as you get pullers, second pullers, again, this is as tough as it can ever get for a defensive back. And this was early in the season, and you'll watch as our defensive back at the bottom here, Gerald Brown, he's going to actually get the toughest scheme that he could possibly get. He's now involved because of the formation. There's another tight end. He's off of the edge. He is a D-gap player, and he's responsible for creating an edge of the defense. They're going to pull two blockers to him. They're going to get one to him. Gerald has to attack this and squeeze it and not let the ball run inside of him. So again, as you watch this, what I would say to him is hit up through those guys. Don't give them that chest to hit because you get rolled out of there. Now, he gets the perimeter set, but we'd like to see him do it a different way, and we'll come back here in a second and you'll see it done correctly. So again, it's a good job of him recognizing that he's got a second puller. Now at this point right there, go attack the puller. Actually go cut the puller. Take his outside thigh pad, and that won't allow the second blocker up. But you can't do what he does here, which is basically just run up the field and give his body up. It's too big a body. You don't want to give that guy a chance to do that. And it looks like an old Western movie where he's getting knocked out of the bar. But right here, rip up the field just like he did earlier against the defensive back. We get the play made, but we need a better fill than that. We need a better edge set than that. All right, let's look again.
as we set the edge now on the weak side. You're going to see the safety now down low weak. This is our safety, Kyrie Saber. He's involved in the defense. He's low in the defense, and he's going to set the perimeter of the defense right here. So his eyes are on this tackle. All right, any puller, he's going to always make sure he keeps outside leverage on the puller. All right, so again, in this situation, by squeezing the line of scrimmage, we create a situation where the puller can't be right. You're going to end up with two guys to block, and it's a very simple play for Kai. He sees the scheme. He knows now that they're going to be one shy. So in this blocking scheme, you've got 1, 2, 3 guys, and again, they're not counting on this kind of support out of the safety. These two are going to try and block these two, and now again, Kai's eyes are in the right spot. And again, eye focus at every position is so important. You got to know what you're looking at, because if you put your eyes in the right place, the blocking scheme will take you to the ball most of the time. Nice job of tackling. We get a tackle for a loss because the safety's down there setting the edge well for us. Okay, again, here's another example of an edge set and how important and how critical it is that you're able to set the edge and you fit and everybody finds their own spot. Now, on the back side here, Gerald Brown is going to be the D-gap player. And again, you can see on the back side, he's now in the box. He's a box player. He's responsible for that C-gap. There's your D-gap player. And again, Kai is going to set the perimeter on the front side so that the ball has no place to go. This is how we get the secondary involved. Good job of attacking the blocker by Kai, squeezing, setting the perimeter to the front side, and Gerald now is a scrape player as the backside player. Again, DB's involved in the run. Again, it's not something that they particularly want to do, a lot of them some of the time, but they have to understand their fits because that is so important. Watch now again. Setting the edge, saying that the ball always comes to an unblocked player. If you get this scheme, a crack scheme, watch now as the DB here attacking the crack blocker. He doesn't go across the face of the crack. He goes upfield inside the crack, which again keeps us with another player to come to the line of scrimmage. If he jumps over this crack, then we've got 2 outside the block and we got a big seam in the defense. So it's his responsibility to continue to keep the ball running laterally, and then eventually it runs to a place where we can handle it. And again, good inside out scrape by the linebacker, but again, as we look at it, good job attacking upfield inside the crack block, and this corner coming to be the last line of defense low outside. Here's another example of how the edge, why it's so important that you set the edge well. You got to you got to do a great job on the edge in this day and age because of plays like this, the option play. All right, here comes the zone read. They're bringing the backside receiver around to be the pitch, and a great job by the DB here recognizing the play, beating the stalk block in the open field, getting upfield, and then taking the outside leg or near hip tracking the ball, which forces the ball inside and minimizes the amount of gain. Right? Again, you can't just be a cover guy. You've got to be able to contribute in the run game. That's playing pitch on option, that's setting the perimeter, and that's being a good near hip track tackler. Now earlier we saw Gerald take on the puller and get bounced out of there. This is a much better example of what we want when we talk in terms of pullers and setting the edge. Now you got the guard. You got a big 330-pound guard up on you. There's no future staying on your feet. Go ahead and cut that upfield leg. Make it difficult for the ball to get inside. And again, a great job of setting the perimeter. And now you're not getting knocked out of there. So let's look again at the edge. If you watch here or to the right of the screen, Gerald sees the block come, and now the puller's on him. And he cuts the outside leg. Very, very good job of taking your inside arm, ripping through the outside thigh pad, forcing the ball back up inside, and giving us a very, very firm edge. Even those little DBs have the ability to set the corner. It takes a little bit of courage, and it takes a little bit of technique. You want to use your advantages, which is your athletic ability, and don't just stand up there and let those big guys come run over the top of you. That's a great job by Gerald Brown setting the corner for us. Now, the ball, again, as we say in our defense, the ball should always run to an unblocked player. At times, that unblocked player will be a defensive back. In this case, with a tight end on the backside, our backside corner, our boundary corner, will be the unblocked player at the point. And just like all our players on defense, he's been well schooled in the fact that he wants to take the outside leg away. He wants to near hip track, as we say, near hip track the ball. And if he misses, the only place he can miss this tackle is back into the other players. So in this case, you'll watch our corner here, Dwight Anderson, as he comes to the line of scrimmage. His eye focus is on the tight end. He gets a base block by the tight end. He now commits himself to the run, and he's going to leverage the ball from outside, taking the outside leg away, forcing the ball back in, and doing a good job of stopping this play for no gain. That's an excellent job on the edge here of our defensive back, not doing what he wants to do, which is, again, you can see him sniffing around, and he almost sticks his head inside. He needs to understand is the ball's going to come out to him, and now I need to frame the ball. I want to make sure, again, as we do this, and now let's talk about our leverages. Dwight is going to take the outside leg away. That's the near hip track to him. The near hip track for Shea now is inside, so we should end up with that nice pincher movement as we come to tackle in space. And there you can see it right there. Near hip tracks, and we get two guys on a tackle. Much better tacklers, like every football team that's ever played, when you've got multiple people on the football. Okay, again, let's look at how this whole thing fits together. All the gaps canceled inside. It's a perimeter running play. They want to crack. We stay inside the cracks. We fight upfield through the cracks and bounce the ball. We continue to bounce the ball. The ball cannot enter the structure vertically. And the corner now near hip tracks the ball, keeps the ball on his inside shoulder. And again, what looks like that they've got the edge here turns out to be a 2-yard gain because of great support out of the secondary and great discipline by the strong safety staying inside the crack and upfield on the crack, not being widened right there inside the crack, forcing the ball outside and forcing it to an unblocked player. Again, very, very good example of all of our guys understanding. It'll come to an unblocked player. Here's a blocker. He can't block two guys. We've got one there and one there. I get upfield, I frame it, I come inside out on it, and the ball will run to an unblocked player in every instance in the defense. There should not be a scheme or a play where we don't get the ball to an unblocked player. In most cases, we want it to multiple unblocked players if we can. Right? Again, watch here now against the option to the top of the screen. We got a little blitz going from the bottom of the screen, but to the top of the screen we're playing zone, and that now means that everybody's got a blitz responsibility, a option responsibility, a gap responsibility, an edge responsibility. So now we fight through the stalk block, keep our outside leverage, near hip track the football, and again, turn this into a no gain play, a minus yardage play on the option. Great job by everybody playing team defense, recognizing their fit with inside the scheme. Great play from the backside. This is our safety on a safety blitz, forcing the pitch. Now, again, talking that principle of near hip tracking the ball as we tackle. Here again, you can see we are near hip track, near hip track. We've got the ball in a pincher movement, and now we'll continue to keep our leverage. And now again, you've got exactly what you want, a 2-on-1 tackle in the field of play. We want to eliminate as much as we can one-on-one tackles in space. That's what offenses want. That's what we fight to never let it happen. Now again, put this one in here because this is an example of playing in the box. I want you to watch now Gerald Brown at the bottom of the screen. He is in essence, when the formation dictates it, when the motion or the formation dictates it, the DBs have to understand they have the same scrape and leverage principles as a linebacker. When they're in the box, They scrape and they leverage before they enter. So Gerald doesn't want to just turn and run. He wants to scrape and now work laterally, keeping the ball on the proper shoulder so that if this ball would crease us, if it would hit a gap and sneak through, he's in a position to play it. It's a good job of him being situationally aware, recognizing his scrape, his fit, his flow, his near hip track on the ball. And again, we get another set of shoulder pads out of the secondary that we don't count on to help us in the run. It's an excellent job of him right here recognizing there's his strike point. He and the Mike backer now attacking that thing, and we want to hit the football, tackle the football, knock that football out whenever we can. Okay, again, another real nice example, near hip tracking. Again, if you study football, and we've gone through an exhaustive study for the last 3 years in pro football, far more tackles are broken because guys get cut back on than ever get run over or outrun. So again, it's imperative that you come to balance in the open field, you get control of your feet, you keep your proper leverage on the ball, and you make the ball go back into other tacklers. If you are the first tackler from the outside, you're going to near hip track the ball, force the ball back to another player. If you have a defender outside of you at your level, you can play inside out on the ball. This is a great job by our DB, coming to balance in the open field and making the toughest play in football, which is an open field tackle against these great athletes that are playing in pro football today. Watch now from the end zone copy. And the thing I want you to really pay attention to here is watch how the defensive back here, number 11, look at him get to his shoulder square position. He puts himself in a position now where he can work both ways. He fights to get square shoulder position, and now as we go slow, you can see he's got his feet under control, his shoulders are square, his leverage is proper on the ball, and he's making the ball. If he would miss here, he misses back to other players. So you can see a good example of gang tackling, but all the players in this situation right here, every single guy is on the proper hip. We're all near hip tracking the ball. And again, that's something that you need to work on in practice. You need to walk through it. It's got to be a part of your walkthroughs. It's got to be a part of your team structure, and it's got to be a part of your individual drills. All of these things are important. If you don't drill your DBs in run support in your walkthroughs, then you're allowing big plays to happen. Again, one of the reasons we were so good in limiting big runs against us last year, second most in the entire CFL, was the fact that we practiced these concepts in our walkthroughs. Discipline on the edges. I want you to watch here now at the bottom of the screen against the zone read. The zone read is best when it can create indecision on the edge. Here there's no indecision, and there's great discipline by both the outside linebacker and the DB to take and finish their responsibility, to cancel their responsibility. The DB does not ever look inside. He gets to the leverage of the quarterback. When he sees the ball's handed off, now he can chase the football. But until he recognizes the ball's handed off, he's going to cancel the quarterback on the edge. Watch again. 43 will scrape and play the dive, and the DB, Gerald Brown, will take quarterback. All gaps canceled, all option responsibilities made. Again, defensive back play, the glamour part of it is to play pass defense, to pick the ball off, to get PBUs, to knock receivers out. But the reality of it is the game is still at least a 50-50 run game, and we need you as defensive backs to be a part of it. You've got to set the edge, you've got to be great tacklers, and you've got to be able to pursue and run and strike guys in the open field. You can see by watching that tape that every one of those secondary players we watched today had some fundamental system things that they needed to do. They were very, very specific inside the system. They had to carry those responsibilities out, and frankly, they had to tackle. Now, not every secondary player wants to tackle, but anybody that's going to play the run well is going to demand that their secondary players be able to come up and fit and force and tackle in the run game. So again, DBs, we're going to ask you to do it because it's critical in our system, as the ball always runs to an unblocked player. And it may be that wide field corner's got to come up and make a play on 3rd and short. Everybody's going to play the run in the 3-4.
You've had a look at what it takes to be a great defensive lineman in the 3-4. You know, everything that we do with our defensive linemen is predicated on, number one, canceling gaps in the run game, two, getting after the passer. But today we concentrated, really focused very much on the techniques, the specific techniques, the fundamentals, the eye placements, the hand placements of being a defensive lineman and stopping the run, canceling your gap in the 3-4 system.